In the US alone, 109,000 plus people are on the National Transplant Waiting List as of September 2020. 17 people die every day waiting for an organ transplant. And in 2019, only 39,718 transplants were actually performed in the US. As you can tell, there's a major shortage of organ donors, a problem that doesn't just apply to the US, no, it's a global issue. And as more and more people keep dying on a daily basis because of organ shortage, we as humans need fast and innovative solutions to combat this. The subject of this video might be the exact means to an end to this problem, in fact, many more.
A promising approach is the use of stem cells. Now you might be wondering, what exactly are stem cells? Let me explain. Stem cells are undifferentiated pluripotent cells, meaning they are basically blank cells with no specific purpose, but rather the basis for every other type of cell in your body. You could think of them as the basic building blocks of a living organism. But what is pluripotency exactly? Pluripotency refers to the cell's ability to develop into one of the three main tissue types in your body. The endoderm tissue, the type of tissue the interior stomach lining, as well as our lungs are made of. The mesoderm tissue, the stuff we interact with the most, like blood, bones and muscles. And the third type, the ectoderm, from which the nervous system and the skin is made of. Stem cells can be differentiated into two main groups: induced pluripotent stem cells, short iPSCs, and embryonic stem cells, short ESCs. Embryonic stem cells are harvested from the inner cell mass of a blastocyst. After 4 to 5 days of embryonic development, after the initial fertilization of the zygote, a cluster of 50 to 150 cells develops from which stem cells can be extracted. A big advantage of ESCs is the fact that scientists are able to develop adult human stem cells without taking tissue from patients. They can then study these specialized adult cells in detail to try to recognize complications of diseases or to study cell reactions when exposed to new drugs. What makes ESCs even more attractive for scientific and medical uses is their ability to reproduce much faster than iPSCs. This is mostly due to their G1 phase being much shorter, and therefore the entire cell cycle is being accelerated. iPSCs, as the name suggests, are artificially derived from a non-pluripotent, typically somatic cell into a pluripotent cell. Nowadays, any kind of cell from almost every part of the body, take for example fat cells, can be induced via viral vectors, which use viruses to deliver genetic material into cells and can then be engineered to form the desired cell type. This process has a few drawbacks though. Growing iPSCs in a lab takes a long time and is quite inefficient and only generates a handful of pluripotent cells. There are also some issues with iPSCs being rejected by the patient's body or even causing cancerous tumors, which is why even today, not a single treatment using iPSCs was accepted for clinical trials. The one significant advantage of iPSCs is the fact that they eliminate the ethical problems of killing an embryo. But not all hope is lost, because there are already treatments using mesenchymal stem cells, for short MSCs, which are multipotent stem cells derived from bone marrow, usually utilized for tissue, bone and cartilage repair, that are approved by the Federal Drug Administration (FDA) to treat diseases like blood cancer. Mesenchymal stem cells are a type of stem cell that are a little further down the cellular development process, so they can only develop into certain types of tissue. What makes them even more suitable for use is the lower risk of uncontrolled mutations.
Now all that sounds really damn insane, and as with many groundbreaking scientific discoveries, people will have their opinions. Since the first experiments on stem cell research in 1998, in which two research teams led by James A. Thompson for the University of Wisconsin and John D. Gearhart for Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, used embryonic stem cells, which are, as Max explained earlier, harvested from human embryos in a very, very early stage of development. Yet these couple dozen cells are still enough to fuel heated debates across the globe amongst scientists, ethicists, policymakers, religious communities, doctors, and philosophers. As you can start to tell, human stem cell research is a rather socially controversial area of science. See, although embryonic stem cells, or ESCs, have so much potential in benefiting our lives in so many different ways, not everyone is exactly in favor of their use for scientific or even therapeutic purposes. These predominantly religious parties argue that human life begins as a zygote, and therefore destroying the blastocyst would be considered as killing a human, which of course would be outrageous. To put that into perspective, compared to roughly 150 cells a blastocyst is made up of, a human baby consists of about 2 trillion cells. Another issue might be the goal of artificially growing organs in a dish in the future, which, as some argue, is simply above our pay grade as humans. Better said, it's too big of an intervention of science into the natural course of life, as some think.
With fetal stem cell research, in the first place, there's not really a good scientific reason that I've heard for it. The adult stem cell research has yielded some pretty good results.
I doubt it.
Well, this clip clearly shows that religion doesn't condemn stem cell research as a whole, just everything involving using embryos in the process. Yet it is important to note that the man shown in the video is obviously wrong about the fact that there is no benefits to using ESCs compared to iPSCs, because, as mentioned before, they might behave similarly in some cases, yet not the same. In the end, regarding the use of embryonic stem cells in science, it all boils down to similar, if not the same questions as with the abortion debate. Starting from what age of development do you consider a human fetus to be a human being? Is it okay to kill off embryos for scientific purposes or to potentially save lives? If so, how is all that regulated and what rules would apply for the use of embryos?
On the other hand, you have scientists who in most cases don't share these views and are therefore not concerned with the slaughter of embryos in the process of harvesting ESCs. Scientists see all the benefits and potential for further research embryonic stem cells bring to the table. In contrast, we have iPSCs, which are proven to be related to various issues while in use for scientific as well as medical purposes. Apart from being easier to work with, more effective and less prone to mutations, ESCs are the ones helping us to better cure diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, spinal cord injury, stroke and traumatic brain injury, even hair loss, and many more. In addition, these supercells can help us understand and trace back how exactly stem cells differentiate into the 220 plus different types of human cells and are therefore essential for research purposes. A quote that I really like to sum all of that up was from Deborah J. Matthews. Scientists go into science to do science, not to do law.
I like it, Kaji.
Now, as you can tell, the seemingly perfect solution to all of humanity's medical problems all of a sudden has become one of humanity's rather big ethical issues. An example for people who are trying to find a possible solution would be the Hingston Group, a consortium for scientists, ethicists, policymakers, doctors, and philosophers across the globe interested in ethically and scientifically defensible research on stem cells. Personally, we don't see a problem in the use of embryonic stem cells for scientific or medical purposes, solely based on the fact that we disagree with calling a clutter of a maximum of 150 cells a human being, and what makes it okay to do the same thing on animals, and then when it gets to humans it suddenly becomes a problem. What makes us so superior? Now that we've covered more than just the basics on what stem cells are, what they do, and what people think, we found a case of possible use for stem cells to combat the global medical emergency we're facing right now.
Guess what, bitch? Coronavirus!
Stem cells are so versatile, according to a group of Chinese scientists for Elsevier Journal, they can even be used to treat patients recovering from a SARS-CoV-2 infection. To combat the virus with the highest efficiency possible, the scientists used stem cells in 3 different ways in their concept, so that each issue is treated separately and therefore the most effectively. First up, we've got modulation. In their studies, a calculated amount of those nice MSCs Max mentioned earlier are injected into COVID patients' bloodstreams through an IV, and have been proven to help their upper respiratory tract combat overt inflammatory cell infiltration, for example with the salivary gland epithelial cells, ciliated cells, or generally sensitive tissue in the respiratory tract of the human body in regulating immune response that were put off by COVID. Next up, we've got repair. Obviously, either MSCs derived from healthy lung tissue or iPSCs can be used to induce faster and healthier lung repair in patients that have survived and are recovering from their coronavirus infection. See, there is still a lack of evidence for this part of their theory, yet research is really promising. Next up, we've got prevention. So for a possible vaccine, our Chinese fellows claimed iPSC-derived virus-specific cytotoxic T lymphocytes, or short CTLs, which are a specific type of T cells that have the capacity to directly kill off other cells, may be used to offer off-the-shelf therapies for preventing coronavirus reemergence. Combined with the natural killer cells that can be modified, we might have a real chance at fighting this damn thing.
Stem cells can become the ultimate tool to treat some of the worst diseases known to man. Until this becomes reality, a lot of research still has to be done to fully grasp the full set of abilities, limits and side effects. As for us, we're excited to see what the future holds, and when dish-grown organs finally become a reality. ist
Und nochmal. And for the University of
Scientists go into science not to do science. Fuck, man.
group of Chinese.
Du, Alter, der Aussprache war perfekt, du Pisser, Mann.
As for us, we're excited to see what the future holds and when dish-grown organs finally become reality.
Hit it!